Wheatley, and welcome to episode 139 of the Wheatley podcast. Thank you very much for joining us and for showing your support during the week. Thank you very much to Shane Conor for coming on last week. We spoke about a lot of things. We I suppose halfway through we went off track on what we were talking about, but it really made for a very, very interesting conversation. But he spoke about his life coaching, which is every time I hear from a life coach, I learn a lot of different things that I thought they were one thing, but they're not. They're many, many different things. And Shane is obviously does his side of things. So have a listen to that if you haven't done so already. We'll get into this week. This week, our guest is a hypnotherapist and a man who wants to bring the Irish language into modern spirituality. And his name is Conor Ruadh. How are you doing, Conor? Sorry, man.
Excellent. Sorry, I'm just taking a sip of the old tea.
Just as you're drinking.
I'm very good. Thanks for having me.
No, you're more than welcome. You're more than welcome. So, Conor, we always start in the same place. We always ask the first two questions and then get into it. But could you give us a short history of your upbringing, please?
Yeah, let's try and summarize this. So, I was reared in County Kildare, and at that time anyway, it was just myself and my mother. So, yeah, I have to say my upbringing, I was out would have been out in the country, surrounded by fields. That would have been my association, definitely my remembrance of childhood. So, and I would have spent a lot of time with in my nana's again, which was just surrounded by fields, and with my cousin. So again, it was definitely those early years where I was happy out, to the best of my knowledge anyway, consciously anyway. I was happy out, and had a nice association with that. But at the same time, because my mom was a single mother in the early 90s, which isn't that long ago. However, at the same time, not that it was you were ostracized, but at the same time, it wasn't as normal as it is now to be a single mother. So I think there was pressure. She felt pressure. So I always, um, and she would admit this even to this day, that there was big emphasis on education. On education, that was the path to success. And again, my mother was very intellectual, or still is. But that was always it. So that was big when I was growing up. That was a big push on, yeah, doing well in academia. So it probably on reflection, definitely that was probably where I sought validation as well. Like we
Mm-hmm.
always try sport as well, but definitely schooling. And that probably continued up through secondary school. But when my mother remarried and met like Robbie, who I call my dad now, and I have a brother and sister now, a couple of years younger than me. But when she went back to work when my brother Jack was born, she was a lecturer in Dublin Business School. So that was, pretty good job at the time, still is now, very well respected. And she went back after a couple of weeks and was just miserable. And actually was like, I'm out of here. So that was probably, and compared to probably her history of wanting that for me, that was probably surprising at the time, around 11 or 12. She was out of there and she didn't know what she wanted to do. And I suppose why has this got to do with me was she started on a kind of path of, I think she started this kind of dance and movement therapy course out of nowhere. So when I was 14, 15, 16, she was going off for weekends at a time, and she was always into art and stuff. So I think that was the influence on my upbringing, was definitely there. Always a kind of creativity, but then I think with spirituality or alternative ways to be in the world, definitely was through my mother, and seeing as I was, when we're 15, 16, 17, we're quite apathetic about
Mm-hmm.
most things in life. We don't really care. Everything's weird to us. So I even remember, coming home and my mom there with some of her friends, wrapped in cloaks, and I don't know what they were doing, funny music on. I was like, what are weirdos?
Yeah.
But it was, I remember going to, mind body exhibition, crystals, all that, when you're younger. So that was probably my first inkling of there are different ways to be in the world. And especially then my mom was on a healing journey, probably significantly when I was a teenager. So that probably had an impact then for my later work then, I suppose, for sure. And yeah, and I always, because of my upbringing in the countryside, and we did move to Dublin, which is a big move for me, but I always loved nature. I think I still do feel safe in
Mm-hmm.
nature. And that's probably a lot of my influences now. And again, I went to a Gael school as well. So that's to kind of tie in with my connection. I attended a Gael school when I was younger. So I had that foundation in Irish. Um, yeah, that's kind of a
That's pretty.
rough.
It's pretty impressive, Conor. To be fair, there's I suppose it might be a little bit of a tie-in, maybe with what you were saying. But when did you first become aware of mental health?
I can think of probably two times. A really early memory was probably when my mom told me that we're moving to Dublin. Now
Mm.
again, this is probably someone who lives in Dublin. That's not a
Yeah,
big
yeah.
deal. Oh, great! But as I was like 5 or 6 or 7, about maybe around 6 or 7 at the time, and all my whole world was Kildare. My family, I was surrounded by just what I thought was safety. So that was very. It would have been traumatic for me. I even remember
Mm.
that memory of crying in the back of the car. So that's probably a main memory of being sad, maybe. But obviously, I wasn't aware of what mental health
Mhm.
was. But to be honest, I think it probably was like I had a happy time during even in secondary school up in Dublin. I loved it in the girls' school. Um, but I know when I started secondary school, I did have thankfully, it wasn't throughout my whole secondary school either. Definitely the first 2 years or so, maybe even the first year of secondary school, I definitely probably became aware, definitely, of my mental health when,
Mhm.
on reflection, I know I can only speak for myself. I definitely was very sensitive, definitely very insecure.
Mhm.
As so, with that, obviously, you then start to not do things, but try and maybe becoming someone that you maybe think other people will accept, yourself. And I'm sure
Mhm.
we all have done that. But specifically, then I think when I started in secondary school, I try to align myself probably strategically with like because I was good at sport as well, so it's not like I wasn't, but more with like the people who were very good at sport in GAA or rugby, um, and not so much even with people that I may have gone to primary school with, and I kind of distant, not I just faded away a bit, and I ended up probably aligning myself with people that weren't as genuine friends as I probably
Mhm.
should have, that I thought were the cool crowd, thinking that's what you're supposed to do. And that probably it started good, and then I definitely felt more and more lonely
Mm.
as probably the end of first year or something. So, and I would have then, even though looking back, they were my friends. Definitely, it was a lot of slagging, a lot of I would be very virgin on probably bullying
Mm.
and because also, even though I was in Dublin, my accent was different to a Dublin, even though it's not the strong country accent either. But you'd know I wasn't from Dublin either, and then I also thought that was I might as well make myself different, but that then made me more alienated because it was
Yeah.
like, oh, the culture or something. So yeah, asking for it. But yeah, so a lot of it was not controlled, and then some of it was my own doing as well of trying to be someone I wasn't. So I do remember at definitely 13, like I remember a memory of um, yeah, thinking about taking my own life and stuff. So I did get to that. Now I never made any plans, nothing like that. But there was times where I wanted definitely not to be there anymore.
Yeah. And
So that was I was very aware of it at that time. Then of I'm not happy here at all.
at such a like it's brutal at such a young age when you can't really figure it out in your own mind what it actually is, and like to go as dark as thinking about taking your own life is pretty harrowing for a teenager who knows that they can't. Well, it's not that they can't speak to someone, but they think they can't speak to someone, which is probably even worse.
Absolutely, and this is what I would say to people now. Like, definitely, don't do what I did
Mm.
because for some reason, and this is probably universal, but specifically even more with lads, is I didn't tell anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have no idea. And I had a good relationship with my mom and my dad. No idea. I didn't, and I swallowed it all. Like I nearly feel that. You know that. You remember that if you ever try and stop yourself crying.
Mm.
I probably did that so many times. Those in school, definitely in the first year, maybe to the tail end of it. Um, and I didn't. Yeah, I didn't say a word. Mom would have known probably till a year or two later. Or and it is amazing. I don't know why we do that. And I've actually spoke to my partner Colette about it, and she's like, God, and imagine you had a good relationship with your mother. So
Mm.
imagine what it would be like if you didn't. But it's definitely for me. I can't speak for all men, but maybe that was just an inherent. You don't want to burden people, and
Yeah.
you'll hear that a lot with. I used to volunteer with Smartens a couple of years ago. Sorry, about 10 years ago, just after college. And the same kind of theme will come up sometimes, and some callers would share like, that burden. Or I'm going to do this. Again, people will be better off without me, quote unquote. And it's not true, but it seems to me a myth we start to believe as we go darker and darker down that path of it would just be easier. And I don't want to be unloading my stuff on people, which is a
Yeah,
shame.
absolutely. Yeah, you do see it an awful lot. So, like, again, like tying in with that, you've a Bachelor of Science in Psychology. Is that, or should I say, what was your interest in psychology? Where did
Mm.
that kind of come from?
Again, I don't think I was mad about sport. Definitely
Hmm.
all through secondary school, I was mad. Like the usual. Probably I don't know if it's the same now, but I feel in the 90s, everyone wanted to be a professional footballer.
Yeah,
Every boy, and it's
yeah,
probably like, I don't know, environmentalist now or something. But
yeah.
everyone was like, I want to play for Man United. Um, so that's gone as well. But so, but anyway, yes. So I didn't really know, to be honest. Definitely coming up to leaving cert, I still was. I think I remember looking at. It was a very similar word, but like physiotherapy, I was looking
Mhm.
at. I definitely explored that, but again, mad points for that as well. And I wasn't sure, but something. I think someone gave me a book or right on psychology, and but actually there was a memory. There was something that happened to me, all right, that made me think. You know what? It would be interesting to know why people do the things they do.
Mm.
So I was at an 18th birthday party, and we are all drinking and everything, all having a good time. And one of the lads there, we were in the kitchen. He just kind of spilled some beer on him or something. And like I was like, oh, there's a couple of us there. You laugh.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, he like a bull to a red flag. Just obviously just saw me laughing at him, and before I knew it, I felt this numbing sensation. And you can tell I had never been punched before until this moment. So
Yeah.
all I remember is this feeling. This like I didn't really know what happened, and then I went like, why does my face feel numb? Like, so what happened was he had just gone boom, smacked me in the face, uh, right. So that was very shocking.
Mm.
And obviously everyone else saw what happened. So then they, of course, got between us because I was gone. I just realized what had happened. Gone, whoa. Now my first reaction, especially then, and probably even now, was never like, "Oh, let me at him."
Mm.
I needed to know actually. I was just like, "What just happened?" But obviously everyone else assumes because we're lads. Oh, he's going to start a fight, and yeah. But I was
Yeah.
like, "No, no. Can you? I actually literally need to talk to him because I think I already knew this is insane. What's after just happened, or that's abnormal. That's not a normal reaction." So eventually I was like, "No, no, I'm grand. I just need to talk to this lad here," and I did, and we came up to him, and I just went, "What was that?" And he was kind of still foaming at the mouth, and I went, "No, no." But what I said to him was, I probably should have phrased it better, but like, "You're lucky I'm sound," and he was like, "I'm lucky." And then I went, "No, no, no,
Yeah.
you're not listening to me." I just went, "You just smacked me for no reason," and it was like I saw a mist like clear from his eyes, and he fully realized what had happened,
Mhm.
and I was like, "Oh my god, I'm so sorry," and was apologizing. And I actually went, "No, it's okay." But it was I could see it lifting from him,
Mhm.
and that was it. And I look, I was intact. It was all good, and everyone was going, "Oh, that was mad." Anyway, later on the night, then I came out, and this lad was outside, kind of crying with his girlfriend. And I don't mean that in a mocking way. I actually, in that moment, I knew I have no idea what's going on with him,
Mm.
but there's something going on to explain. Maybe that makes a lot of sense. He's obviously going through stuff, possibly more than likely, because that isn't a normal reaction to,
Yeah.
especially for something laughing anyway. That went from 0 to 60. So I do mean that and that goes for all of us.
Mhm.
We're all sometimes maniacs in our own homes. No one knows the full story of us, but that was definitely my I probably may have already picked psychology, but that was my clarifying moment of that fascinated me
Mm.
of I wonder what was going on there and why people maybe got me thinking of why people do the things they do. Yeah.
Psychology is really interesting to me because I guess I'm 40 now, but we'll say maybe it was 10 years ago, and I didn't really understand what psychology was. Now I had a mental breakdown, and I wanted to figure out a kind of a similar thing, like not why does this happen? Why
Mm.
do I feel this way? Suicidal ideation, all this kind of stuff, and I didn't quite understand. And I literally, and this isn't a joke, I literally bought a book called Psychology in a Nutshell, right?
Yeah.
So it was one of those, like, those little ones. But I will say,
Does the
for
job. Does the
yeah,
job.
exactly, like it was very much what I needed at the time. I couldn't get, if someone stuck a textbook, big thick psychology textbook
Yeah.
down in front of me, it wouldn't be no use to me at the time. And it was something that I was able to kind of go off and at least have an idea of why the brain thinks the way it does and those kind of things. And you speaking about like violent interactions, and these moments of violence are so, like, I remember I had an interaction, it was similar enough, and the pit of your stomach is just, you just feel sick.
Mm.
It was just such a horrendous kind of feeling. And obviously, if you have something like suicidal ideation or anything to do with mental health, it's a similar kind of feeling. It's that sickness in your stomach, and you're kind of frozen. And I really wanted to figure it out. And I'm still reading about it. I'm still listening to people talking about podcasts about it. and I'm interested in how someone like yourself, Connor, would bring the benefits of that study into your everyday life.
Yeah, yeah. I think I suppose it's just definitely for me. From my point of view, I do like to, um, and I've actually this has come up a lot recently in work that people will say to me, for better or worse, I do naturally see the good in people,
Hmm.
even if as people would say, no, but he's an absolute, you know.
Yeah.
But however, that's not to, again, not that we're always going around excusing people,
Hmm.
but I do definitely from, and this is from it. Does not You don't have to do a degree in psychology for this, but that we do all have a story, and for most of us, we are hurting in some way because it is unavoidable in life. We trauma is unavoidable, specifically in childhood. Even if you have
Hmm.
the best childhood ever, it could be the simplest way that your dad looked at you one day, and oh, I really felt that.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be because you were clattered around the house or something like awful like that. But I think it is sometimes not jumping to simply that's simply like an interaction you could have at home, or things not going, and then you go into work and take the head off someone, or your boss. What is it? Sometimes the boss takes the head off us, but it's because probably his
Mm.
boss took the head off him, or and that I suppose to try and remember that. Yeah, we don't really ever know what's going on, specifically behind closed doors. So I try anyway to bring that in a little bit. Doesn't mean it always works, but actually, but you know what? I don't really know what that's about. Even like strange or interactions or something.
Mm.
Yeah, does that
We
kind of make
don't know.
sense?
I look. I tried to figure that out. We're all trying to figure it out, and I work in a gym, and I train in a gym, and there's lots and lots of people, and I do try to be well, I hope I'm nice to everyone,
Ah,
but
of
I do
course, yeah.
try to remember that idea of everybody's going to say a gym for a reason. Some
Mm.
are going to take out their frustration. Some want to get out of the house away from the kids. There's all
Yeah,
different
yeah,
reasons,
yeah.
and we are trying to remember that they're not there for the same reasons I am, and we're all trying to be, cool and sound with each other, and it's so important. For you, like, because obviously the Irish language is such an important thing to you. Is that just because now I know you went to Gael school? That wasn't your choice, I'm guessing, for you to go there.
Probably not at 4 or 5, no.
But no. So, but do you think the importance to you is it was rooted in so early that it just became something that was so big for you?
Well, I'll tell you anyway, my scale anyway, the old
Mm.
story, because it's not, yeah, I think because I'm using Irish now, people will just, again, those projections, people will assume, oh, you and your family are all Gaelgoers and you've been
Yeah.
speaking it your entire life for 100 generations. No. So anyway, my story is that because it's not as simple as that. So yeah, I did. I went to Gael school when I was younger, and yeah, I enjoyed it. Like it was just part of being in school for me. So you just speak Irish
Mhm.
all the time, but that wasn't. I didn't dislike it anyway, but it was just normal. There wasn't. I didn't know any better anyway. But I was very thankful for it because what happened was when I went to secondary school, I realized the chasm, the difference in someone who went. I remember in first year in, oh my God, Christ, I was sitting beside one of my best friends from primary school, and we were doing like the colors or something, and I went, please tell me this is not what we're doing. I was like, I remember thinking what they were doing was what we had done in like senior infants or
Yeah.
something, or not, yeah, maybe he was just starting base, but I remember thinking, oh God, this is a massive gap. Now, one part of me could have been like, oh, okay, I'm gonna have to really look in here and ask for more work to be challenged, but that's not what I did.
Right.
I went, this is handy, feet up here. So I was like, I didn't do much work for, and a lot of the time in secondary school, then I moved secondary school after that. Actually, did more down to into Bleston and Wicklow, so I was again going back towards the country a bit, and I had a great time there. But in school there, yeah, definitely up to junior cert, Irish was easy for me.
Mhm.
Too easy almost. And I think the teacher even time, she was right. I wasn't even trying. So I wasn't learning, I wasn't improving, I wasn't getting worse, but I wasn't improving either. So even at times she's trying to catch me out if I wasn't paying attention, I'd know the answer. There was one
Mm.
time where she even sent me to the back of the class just to read the Irish newspaper because there was no point in me, whatever it was. However, of course, and this is for everything in life, at some point we do have to put the work in,
Mm.
can coast through. So leaving Sir came, and it did. And I think there is a bit of a jump there. Leaving Sir isn't a walk in the park at all. And I did it okay. I didn't. To be honest with you, I got a B3 in higher level. So which I would think for someone who has fluent Irish, technically, I think that's quite poor. I've no bother
Okay.
telling that to people because I'm like, that's terrible. But it wasn't important to me. I wasn't
Mm.
passionate about it. It was an easy subject for me, if that makes sense. And then I went to college, and one of my friends there, I went to college in the north, University of Ulster, and one of my friends was studying Irish, so he had an excellent level of Irish. One of my best friends still to this day. So that was my little, coming back on a little reminder of Irish. It was kind
Mm.
of coming back on the pan. I was like, oh, that's amazing. But then also a bit of shame, bit of
Yeah.
embarrassment, because I was like, oh, he's so good, and I haven't practiced for years.
Mm.
So that was my first inklings of feeling shame around the Irish language, even though I could understand everything he was saying. I was slow to because I hadn't been practicing. It's like anything else. It's like not going to gym for 6 months. You're gonna feel it when
Yeah.
you start back. But and that was it. And then you could hear everyone. I think of now, singing a few songs as well when you're singing, walking home. After a few beers. So all that was there, and it was good culture. It was very national up there. But it was a great time I had up there. But that was the first again, little hints of Irish again. And then it wasn't until a couple of years later, my son was born, Wolfgang, and someone was I was working at the time was raising their children bilingual, and he had said to me, "All you have to do," because he was like, "I've done a bit of research, I've read the books, is one parent speaks one language, the other parent speaks the other. That's it." And I remember while I was on the walk, like, and I asked him because my son was about a couple of months old, he wasn't, he had been born already, and I went, "Do you think I could do that already now with Irish?" And he went, "Yeah, like should be like sponges." And so that's what I did, and that's what I've been doing for almost 5 years now. My son will be 5 in December, and that's what I've been doing. And slowly over time, because obviously you're speaking to a baby, you're
Mm-hmm.
not having big philosophical conversations. It doesn't have to be very difficult Irish, and you're repeating it over and over every day. It's just I became more and more confident with it, because I had someone to talk to. They weren't
Yeah.
talking back to me at that time, but and that's how I did fall in love with it again. And I did it initially for him, but I got it back tenfold. And I
Yeah.
remember my mom always saying to me before my son was born, "You'll do things for your children that you'll never do for yourself."
Mm.
And that was one where I would have talked all day about, go to this class, I'll do this, I'll sign up to this. I never would have done it for myself.
Mm-hmm.
But I did it as a gift to him, but I've got it back tenfold. And then for the last few years, because I was already involved in meditation, and that's kind of what I want, the work I do, and classes that I wanted to then, why not bring this in to bring the Irish language in? And that's when I started doing, bringing in an Gaeilge
Mm.
into my work, and it's kind of grown and grown and grown from there. And then I think it was like last October, so maybe almost a year ago, I put up like an affirmation as Gaeilge, and it just exploded. And there was just obviously was such a demand for it, because I
Yeah.
saw like within a couple of months, a couple of thousand people had started following me, and was like, whoa. And I've just kind of kept leaning into that. When I lean into it, good things happen. So I'm as I was only talking to someone yesterday, that I think maybe I have found somewhat of my calling anyway, and it's definitely got to do with the Irish language.
Yeah.
So that's why it's important to me now, but it wasn't always.
Always.
Obviously.
And can I say, just to pick this out of it, Wolfgang is his class name for his son. It's
Thanks. He
but
always
it
gets that.
it's great. It's great, honestly. But I'm just going to read an advert. Actually, just before I read the advert, I just also I've seen my closest friend. He lives here in Ireland, obviously, but he's English and his wife is Polish, and I've seen them
Mm,
with their son do the bilingual
yes.
parenting, and it's fantastic just to hear him. He's 3 now, maybe 4, I might be wrong there, but speak to his mom in Polish, speak to his dad in English, and
Wow.
it's incredible. I just think it's incredible if it's possible to do. If it's
And you know
there.
what? And it's really not difficult at all. It's very
Yeah,
straightforward, actually. As much as you would think it is. That's what I thought that, like, oh, it must be really complicated, but it's really not. So if you can, whatever it is, do it. Yeah.
yeah, it's great, and especially if you could do the Irish language, of course. Um, I'll read this advert really well. Fusion Training Centre, Monksland Athlone, a place to train in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, kickboxing, martial arts, and CrossFit. A great atmosphere with experienced coaches and a real sense of community. If you want to join the team, find us on Facebook at Fusion Training Centre or drop in for a chat. Fusion Training Centre, train like a warrior. Did all right. Um, so Conor, this is something that I've really been looking forward to speaking to someone about, because it's not something that's come along on the podcast that often. What does spirituality mean to you?
Spirituality, I suppose it's hard to put in words, isn't
Mm,
it? It's something that I think connects you to something greater than yourself.
Okay.
or an acknowledgement of maybe a belief, but acknowledgement that there is something maybe beyond, especially maybe beyond our level of understanding, but yeah, something that is greater than us, or whether that is a higher power, or even like I suppose even our nature around us. You could argue that like this doesn't have to be, and I suppose it's here in Ireland. I think we obviously because of the hurt of the Catholic Church, we associate spirituality with religion,
Mm-hmm.
but and obviously it's part of it, but we can't we have a struggle. We struggle to separate them, I think, and I know that we probably threw the baby out with the bathwater when it
Yeah.
comes to spirituality and just went, I don't want any part to play in that. For a lot of people anyway, and because that's fair enough because we were hurt. But I think spirituality is an inevitable part of life in whatever way. Now we may not call it by the same name, but I think we do have. When push comes to shove, you know yourself on the old deathbed, or when something happens, and usually a big dramatic change, or we're hurt, or someone we lose someone, or any there's a close shave or a near miss. That is when people, if you really have to push them, there is something there. It's very rare that now I know there's probably some hardcore atheists, but even then, it's still a belief in something.
Yeah.
There's that's almost becomes a religion in itself. But yeah, definitely a connection or an acknowledgement to something greater than ourselves, and I think maybe and giving thanks, some sort of gratitude for that connection or that acknowledgement that maybe I don't really know what's going on.
Mm.
Most of us have no idea what's going on, but I maybe I give thanks for this life, and I know that can kind of seem quite cheesy sometimes or new agey, but even beyond that, there is great power in, specifically when we come from mental health and issue depression, that obviously spend a lot of time in dark places of not being very thankful, and that's not a conscious decision to be, but we
Mm-hmm.
do go very inwards on ourselves. We spend a lot of time up here, lost in our own minds, and yeah, I think there's a great power in starting to at least like no matter how bad it is, there is always something, Jesus, tiny to be grateful for. And I think that that's something we can build on. It's not to say that everything is rosy, but I think there is great power in, and I've heard that before in spirituality, is a praising of life, and it is
Yeah.
amazing that we're having this conversation over some electronic device. It is amazing. And there's so
Yeah.
much mad stuff going on around us the whole time. I don't know if that answers the question at all.
No, it does, and
It's a
it's
hard
in.
one to articulate, but
It is. It is, and I have it written down just underneath the question, and
mm,
it's exactly what you said about throwing the baby out with the bathwater, because that's what I did. It was like when I was
yeah.
younger. Now listen, this is when I'm like 14 or 15, and
No, and that's it, and everyone, and I've even seen that in my
yeah.
brother and sisters. The same. There's nearly, and myself included, we go through that phase of
Mm,
when you're younger. I think there is an acknowledgement and a desire for magic
yeah.
and mystery and spirit, and you're wide open to all that. And then we kind of go into 10, 11, 12, and girls and boys and drinking and all that stuff to become the top priority. And you just go, the church, they're all beep.
Yeah.
And that's fair enough because of the past. And I think then it's as adults maybe it's okay to come back and reevaluate. I know for me, I say with Clec because I spent a good few years like reading about yogic philosophy and that whole
Hmm.
world, and then I started to realize, Jesus, like he's a pretty cool dude. Like beyond, if you separate the
Mm,
church, like which was, a long time afterwards, he was very much like everyone has a pretty the Buddha. Everyone's like, oh yeah, pretty cool guy, nice belief systems, nice values. Jesus was saying the same thing. They're all saying the same thing in different ways, just in
yeah.
different centuries. Krishna, they were all saying the same thing, to in general be nice to one another. Um, yeah, to walk softly on the earth. But they're all saying the same thing. But
Yeah.
it's just the associations that can build up with specifically with the church and stuff.
Well, that's exactly what it is, and you do hear people like saying about, like you mentioned, Buddha,
Mm,
rather than Christ or whatever it might be, and I
yeah,
like this. People have always asked me, because I'm not like a staunch atheist. I
of
think
course.
anybody can believe in what they want to believe in, and they should. And what I shouldn't do is preach to them why they shouldn't do it. It's their decision, and I always think it's my decision to not believe in
Of
God or
course.
whatever. Okay, but what I did, and this is quite maybe why I'm got to thinking about spirituality and stuff like that, is I did what you said, threw the baby out with the bathwater. And now when people ask me, like, well, what do you believe in? There's nothing you believe in. There's no spirit. I would dismiss it and say, well, I just want to be nice to people. As I get older, I think there needs to be more than that. I want to continue with that. Obviously, be nice to people. I'm not
Of
changing
course.
that philosophy
Hopefully.
at all. But there is something more that I want. There's something like in, I didn't say this a couple of weeks ago. I was looking after the gym. The boss was away and stuff like that, and I found myself like, and my housemate was away as well. I found myself being incredibly lonely for that week, like really struggling, uh, stressed out at certain points, parts of the gym. And when I got home and lay in the bed, like I just felt like kind of empty. Like I was obviously tired, and but it was more to it. You know, it
Mm.
felt like more, more mentally, and like you said, with depression and with mental health and anxiety and things like that. You know, when you are in that real dark place, and you said about the tiny little bit of light, that's what I guess that's what I kind of needed. You know, 2 weeks ago, and I didn't have a way of finding it. I didn't have anything in me to kind of think, well, how, and maybe this is why, you know, you came along, and you know, I was able to send you a message,
Mm.
and you know, we got together for the chat. A few of my people, a couple of people who've been on the show follow you and stuff like that. And you know, when we talk about spirituality, actually, if people come to you about it, you know, and I know it's hard to articulate, like me asking the question, what is spirituality? Like it's a pretty large
Yeah,
thing to
yeah, of
ask
course.
about in a podcast. But what do you say to people as they're reaching out? Like if they are struggling, if they are having a bit of a tough time to find something meaningful, or find that little
Yeah.
bit of joy, you know?
And I think that's what you nearly almost answering of finding something, and specifically even like something that brings you joy. 'Cause I know, like, you'll even get clients that nothing brings you joy. You're like, that actually isn't true. You know, at some level, come on. It's just
Mm.
because obviously and we get that. It's like, you're in your bad mood. It's like everything's ruined. You know, like, you know, you're having a
Yeah.
bad day. You're like, is it? And you're like, oh yeah, fair enough. Yeah, sorry, I was a bit of an arsehole 10 minutes ago. So I think even that, obviously, when you're really down, literally in the dumps, you know, it can be hard. But I think there is always something. And I would urge people sometimes to come on, like, you need
Hmm.
to. There is something. Find, and that's, I mean, it's anything. It's like that. You know, if I'm in a dark room, and all the doors, windows are closed, but there is no windows, and I'm in a dark room, the doors closed, I have no idea the concept of light. But if someone was for a moment to kind of open the door and close it again, I see that shaft of
Hmm.
light coming in, and then I know, okay, there is a door there somewhere. I just need to find it. And that goes for, and that's why I would say to people, specifically that are struggling, and this can go, it doesn't have to be a spiritual practice, but even anything, try something new. You know, what
Hmm.
did I say? Like, nothing changes if nothing changes. So specifically with that, like, find something that might, start trying everything. Experiment, you know, as you said, throw everything at the wall and see
Hmm.
what sticks. So that is that, you know, jumping in lakes, cold water swimming, painting, uh, running a marathon, or journaling, meditating, going off on retreat. I don't care what it is, but I would say, I urge people to at least try, because you don't know what's going to work. What might work for me might not work for you. And I can't say meditation's for everyone, or, you know, Irish language classes to connect with yourself. That's not going to work for everyone.
Yeah.
But it's, find something. Don't just, you know, like, you're already waving the flag, because, you know, I've heard before that it takes a, now there's obviously going much more on the spiritual path, that I've heard someone quote before that, and it changes their perspective. You know, to get a human birth, let's just say there was an idea of reincarnation and whatnot, that it takes great merit to get a human birth, and that always stuck with me. It was, wow. So that means, like, we probably did really, really well to even get to this point. We've
Hmm.
earned this, so why not honor that? You know, because it is. And I think it's because of the society we live in as well. We live in general, definitely in the West anyway, in Ireland, and we're part of this big, massive capitalist machine. Though it's very normal. It's, we're again, it's part of everyday life now. And
Hmm.
just like, if you talk about spirit, it's like, what are you doing that for? That's not real again, because you can't see it. And because it's all just about, within reason, we, you know, it's what did they say? It's hard to be sane in an insane society. And in a lot of ways, you could argue our society is a very sick society.
Hmm.
And no wonder, like, why is it that most people are horrendous issues with mental health, even with physical disorders, diseases? They've never been the highest they've ever been. And I think you can argue from the Industrial Revolution and whatnot. And people are, you know, just working all the time, and they
Yeah.
don't know that there's another way to be in the world. Now, I'm not saying we should all be going out, living on a commune, dancing around the place, but even the simple act of, like, being in an office every single day, 5 days a week until 9. I've never done the Monday to Friday. No, I've always worked up. I've never done the Monday to Friday, so I can't relate to that. But
Hmm.
I usually always think, 9 to 5. But I met some people who are like, 5 o'clock. Geez, you'd be lucky to get out at
Yeah.
5, and it's like 6, 7, 8. I'm like, what? Can you, like, do the maths? Like, how long of a part of your life? And so you want to somewhat enjoy it. I'm not saying you have to love your job now. There's gonna be parts you don't like. That's, you know, that's being realistic. But I can see how that could start to weigh heavy on you. And then, because then
Yeah.
you would then think, is this all that life is? That I'm supposed to, the usual, go do well in school to go into a good course, to then get a good job, and then do all these things, which are important, that is a part of life. But I think it's not everything.
Yeah.
And that's why even I would I'd encourage people, even the simple thing of like connecting with your local environment, even just going for a feckin' walk, taking off headphones. I noticed that a lot now. No one goes anywhere without
Yeah.
headphones on. And again, this is not like we're all full of distraction. We're all watching Netflix and all. I'm on that bus as well. However, geez, even for half an hour,
Yeah.
I would encourage people, maybe even once a week, because I was thinking about this while I was out on the walk yesterday, that yeah, to take off the headphones, even just to, I think when we are entertaining ourselves, again, with the phone, we're whipping, again, especially the phone, we're whipping it out all the time. What we're really saying is this moment isn't enough. So I need to,
Yeah.
like, I am not being entertained.
Yeah.
So I need to entertain me. And this goes for me as well. It's like anything. So even when we're going like for a walk, maybe going, okay, I'm gonna just walk for the sake of walking,
Yeah.
and to take in our environment. And that can seem really simplistic, but even that mere act, just kind of getting out and seeing things the way they are, and I think they even say in science now, they know, when you go out to a forest, it lowers your blood pressure
Hmm.
if you have high blood pressure, and vice versa. If you have low blood pressure, it increases your blood pressure. So there's this like nature is trying to harmonize, if that makes sense. And even shapes in nature, I think they're called fractals, naturally calm us down. That's why even I
Mm.
think pictures of nature on your laptop can
Yeah.
help us somewhat. Um, I think just people realize we don't have to overcomplicate as well. I think we like to, even in spiritual circles, are like, oh, I'm gonna do all these breathing techniques. When sometimes a lot of the most impactful stuff is the simplest stuff that has probably been going for thousands of years, of eating within reason, well, getting decent enough sleep,
Mm.
getting out in nature, having good connections with friends, um, having a laugh, having the crack. That is important, to laugh. Again, you can forget that when we are very down. All those simple things, we just start to, and imagine, go in on ourselves. I'm not going to go out with friends. I'm not going to go for a walk. What's the point of it? I'm going to have crappy food. And sometimes I've found clients and just friends and stuff that I think they can think their problem or whatever is a massive thing, or that they're going mad or whatever.
Hmm.
And then they could just tell me, either by changing a small thing in their life, the impact I can have of even maybe just maybe not working as hard, or maybe doing something nice for yourself, minding yourself a bit more, can have a massive impact. And I found with people that when they start talking, they think I should be doing a lot better than I am.
Yeah.
And then they list out three or four maniac crazy things that's happened in the last like 2 weeks. And I'm going, no, how you're feeling, it's exactly normal. Like,
Mm.
of course you're feeling like this. You're not going mad. You're actually just process, like,
Yeah.
that's a human normal human emotions. But I think we just think we have to go, 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 and never blink, never feel anything, that actually it's okay to be going through a hard time, because you probably actually went through loads of hard stuff. Anyway, that's my tirade
Yeah.
over.
No, no, listen, that I understand all that, and what you said about the phone, and about, I think people sometimes feel a certain amount of guilt when they're just standing there. They feel
Yeah,
guilty
yeah.
because they should be, oh, I'm supposed to be doing this now. I'm supposed to be doing this. And like you mentioned, find a thing, something different, like going for a walk in the forest, whatever it might be, and just allow yourself to do it. Like if it's your time, allow yourself to enjoy that time. It's so important. Why do you think there's been this kind of interest in what you're doing with regards to the spirituality and the
Hmm.
Irish language mixed together?
Good question. So again, I was thinking the exact same thing,
Mm.
and I think, look, I'm sure it was always there, and this is, I'm not the first at all, and there's loads of amazing people incorporating the Irish language into their work. But what I think was, from the very first lockdown, I think things obviously, that shook a lot of people up, obviously, for
Mhm.
for better and worse, and that was a hard time for a lot of people. But what I realized, I think, was it's the second. Like, I lost track how many lockdowns there were. But was it the second one? The time when we could staycation, but you couldn't go
Mm.
abroad.
Yeah.
Whatever the hell that
I
was,
don't
that
know.
time warp.
Yeah.
So anyway, so like, I think in general, people were used to jetting off to lovely sunny places, every couple of months or once a year, whatever, for a holiday. But they were used to getting out of Ireland, and I think when that staycation came around and people were stuck, to say they had to vacation in Ireland.
Mhm.
Vacation, sorry, I had to holiday. I'm not
I
American.
know.
Um, but I think that was a big moment, because first of all, they couldn't, and like our problems was they couldn't run away.
Mm-hmm.
They had to stick with it. And I think even the first lockdown when you couldn't leave your house, as much as it was very difficult for people, there also was a bit of healing, I think. Maybe hopefully in the long, maybe then whether they saw that or not, in having to sit with themselves. Some people would say that sometimes we can't keep running. At some point, you have to stop and sit with your shit. You know.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so with that staycation, when people were traveling around Ireland, I think there was a bit of a, yeah, people started to realize, geez, you know what, this country's all right. And with a bit of nice weather, they were going to all these different places, and then with that, you're either going to Kerry or Cork or Clare or Belfast, and they were listening to, maybe hearing the traditional music a bit more, going to Gaelic areas. But I think they ended that awakening of, actually, this Ireland isn't that bad, because they were just so used to running away. And that's when people will, young lads and young girls of any local towns be like, oh, this place is a kip, about their local town, like, get me out
Yeah.
of here. But yeah, I think people thought that about Ireland, like, like, oh yeah, get me out of here. But I think the appreciation started to build, and I think it was perfect timing with I think it was Manchon McGann's book, 32 Words for Feel. I think that
Mm-hmm.
came out around, a year or two ago. And I think it was all, and I remember listening to a podcast he was on, talking about, I think there was and is a kind of rising of that, what do we call, the feminine energy of Ireland, that kind of, it sounds a bit woo woo, but that rise, something is waking up, because it is.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone, well, it seems anyway. I was joking a couple of workshops recently of, like, it's either my echo chamber or the Instagram algorithm, but it does feel like
Yeah.
everyone is using Irish now. Everyone
Yeah.
isn't, but a large portion of people I even know don't have Irish, and that weren't, are dropping in their couple focal into whatever they're doing. If they're out running, they're like, oh, Tom A. Gray or something,
Yeah.
So I think it was all this lovely time of having to stay in Ireland, and maybe starting the appreciation build of what an amazing country we do have. Now, every country in the world, I'm not saying, oh, Ireland's the best, every country in the world in its own way, if you spend time, same as your own county, there
Of
are
course.
beautiful
Yeah.
things about it. But we start to be like, oh, there's nothing in that county, there's no one, nothing there. So I think that was a big part to play in it. And then, yeah, I just think there was something waking up, rising in people, and so it just seemed it all worked, went in that direction. Yeah, so there seems to be a massive pull now for the Irish language, and my friend that I kind of quoted earlier on, that I went to college with, he had said couple of weeks ago, he said, no, definitely, I've heard people say, like, the Irish language is having its day in the sun right
Mm.
now. Like, people are, even people that don't have it, they either want it, or are, there's a respect maybe building as well, somewhat, to it, compared to the negative associations we had. So whatever it is happening, I think, for real. I think, and it is real, that
Yeah.
there is a lovely desire there for even just to connect. It's not to say that you have to be fluent, not at all, but at least an acknowledgement that it is important and it is a part of our native roots.
Yeah. And I think you're right. I've noticed people. We've had obviously a couple of people on the podcast who are really interested in the Irish language and kind of will converse in it mostly, over English. But what I do love about that is, I never thought about what you said about people going to places in Ireland on holidays. And you've heard it from a lot of people going to these spots that maybe they've always wanted to go, but they always went to Lanzarote instead,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think we're all like this. Yeah. There's
Yeah.
still, I even still think this now. There's so many places in Ireland you could
Yeah.
spend your whole year going around, and it's amazing if you ever had the time. Yeah.
Yeah, and it really is. It's such a fabulous country, but the idea that there is a connection and a respect growing for the language that it was never lost, obviously, but a lot of people thought it was,
Of course.
is amazing. I saw you practicing meditation with Wolfgang, I think it was, in one of your videos.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Why? When did you start meditating, and how important is it to you?
I I think actually it was actually hypnosis that came up for me first
Right.
when I did my kind of course in hypnotherapy. That was my first kind of time of what you would, similar to like a guided meditation base. I was guided, and I found that was amazing. That kind of, and going home and doing what was called self hypnosis, but
Mm.
very similar to meditation. And then from there, then I think I started meditating, and that became, yeah, very important to me. Maybe it was actually, probably was the exact time I probably needed it, and times maybe where I was, and maybe couple of jobs ago, maybe in the past 2, 3 years ago, I wasn't very happy, and I
Mm.
definitely was stressed out of my mind. So I started to search for what was helping me, and definitely went through time of, the old cold shower, jumping into freezing rivers,
Yeah.
just to blast into the present moment. Now it's hard, but it works afterwards. It's like those
Mm.
things that are bad for us are usually nice in the short term and bad in the long run. But things that are good
Yeah,
for us are horrific in the short term, but nice in the long term.
correct.
But that's probably when I sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say about meditation. It's fascinating to me because I talk to a lot of people on here about meditation, and they're so into it. And I can't like, and I know there's different ways of doing it, and I can't do the meditation where I sit still, and allow
Yeah.
my mind not to think about things because the whole thing of like think about an elephant or don't think about an elephant, and then you're immediately thinking about an elephant, and that's what I do
Yes.
all the time with it. But what I've not even decided, but I've fallen into this thing of I started to do my meditation when I'm running because
Oh, nice. Yeah.
as the movement, like whether you're walking or running, you
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
think about it. It's a natural movement. I'm not trying to break world records, so I'm not
Yeah.
concentrating on the speed. But I've started to do it out there, and you brought up about taking off your headphones or your earphones, and particularly in spring, I find it very effective. When you do hear the bird call in the morning and stuff at the
Mm.
time I go out, and this is when I've started to kind of like have my moment where I can think things through in a positive way for allowing the run to be a positive thing. Not that if you're out there running and you're just annoyed about something, it's almost
Yeah.
like when you get home, the run wasn't even worthwhile. It was kind of a wasted kind of run. So I found that now with my movement, I can do meditation. It's for you, and I know you obviously the one I saw where you sit doing your meditation. Is it something that you can adapt to different you know things you're doing in life?
Yeah, I think so. Like that's it is important definitely because I'll find a lot of people will say that they'll say, oh, I've tried, I've tried meditation, it doesn't work
Mm,
for me, and I think it's because again, like a lot of things, there are a lot of misconceptions around it. So, and it sounds like you're already aware of it, but you'll get a lot of people that will and then assume that meditation is about sitting down cross-legged and to not think of anything.
mhm.
But that's actually almost impossible. You're always going to think of something, but people don't know this, and that's why they sit down, get annoyed, and run. Because obviously, it's like that sign again. It's like keep off the grass. All you want to do is jump in the grass.
Yeah,
So I think it's when you sit down and go like, don't think of anything. That's when like every thought known to mankind enters your mind.
yeah,
But it's not about erasing thoughts, but again, it's about maybe learning to be a bit more passive, or is it like the clouds in the sky? You're kind of more focused on maybe a point on the sky, but you're letting the clouds pass by
mhm.
without getting caught on each one of them. Because you'll know that as well. That'll happen. Even for me, that you could be deep in meditation, and then your mind you'll think of something, and you'll go off on some tangent, not even realize, and it could be 5 minutes before you're like, "Whoa, where was I?"
Yeah,
Because you just got caught. Something, it's like being again by the river. That's another analogy. And the leaves are going by, and you're kind of focusing on maybe the center of the river, and then some lovely, leaf glistening in the sunlight will catch your eye, and you go, "Oh, what's that?" And you're gone.
yeah,
And like everything, it takes practice, but there are different, but that one might not suit everybody.
yeah.
So again, if you are that's a bit more restless, or your mind is, then you have to find some. I know people again, or drumming is very important
Mm,
for people then to do that, because it's again that kind of short, that repetitive drumming, the same effect as meditation of it brings very quickly actually down your kind of drops you into those brain waves of a more relaxed state, or running or movement, or walking meditation, or yeah, and it is to find the one that works for you, because it isn't like you can't say this is the one that's going to work for everyone. I'm sure some schools of meditation will say that is, but we're all different. So
yeah.
it's cool to find the one that works for you, and it doesn't have to be the way people say it has to be.
Can I ask then for hypnotherapy? We spoke a little bit before we hit record, but I've spoken to different hypnotherapists, and they have different way. One Tracy, who was on the program before, was to do it. She kind of concentrated on smoking. Giving up smoking. Is there something that you particularly concentrate on, or is it more kind of varied?
Yeah, it's kind of varied. And definitely recently, I've got a lot of smokers that have come to me.
Right.
That kind of comes up, but no, it can be varied. Again, it can be a lot of the time, like I always say to people anyway, regardless of what you'll come to me for, we'll always be doing, we're teaching people how to relax. That's
Hmm.
really it. So it would usually be, my sessions are maybe, if it's smoking and stuff like that, maybe more, like 2 or 3 sessions. That maybe might be an hour session, but most of the sessions be about an hour and a quarter, hour and a half I'll give, where you can have that time to kind of do go like talk therapy, where we're going back and forth and exploring what's going on for them. And then a half an hour to 40 minutes at the end where they lie up on the plinth, and we do a guided like hypnosis, which is very much like I'm guiding them into meditation, but I'm Yeah, and giving people 30 or 40 minutes of deep, like, profound relaxation. So
Hmm.
again, even I think people, and people will benefit from that, regardless of what they're coming for. Most people are stressed out, in
Yeah.
some way or another,
Yeah.
and so that's why, and that's why people will either afterwards, and you'll get this in class and as well, of people will either say, God, I haven't felt that relaxed in a long time, or I've never felt that relaxed,
Yeah.
and you're like, Christ, but I've lost count how many people have said it to me, and we're kind of going, because I think even our idea of relaxation is still not really deep relaxation.
Mm.
So it's still like putting your feet up and watching TV or a movie or Netflix or having a beer or a cigarette or something, which is, no, they all are nice things to do, but it's not proper deep
Mhm.
relaxation because we're still doing something. Do you know what I mean? We're still, yeah, like we very rarely now do one thing at a time now. Like if we're watching TV, we're on our phones, or
Yeah.
we're doing a million things at once, which is great. But every once in a while, it's, I think it comes from the Thich Nhat Hanh and kind of Zen Buddhism of that, and mindfulness of maybe just doing one thing at a time sometimes. Like if you're going for a run, just go for the run. If you're washing the dishes, or emptying and filling the dishwasher, whatever, just do that. Or if you're
Yeah.
cooking dinner, and I have to do this for myself. Like if I'm driving, you're always put the podcast on, put music on, but
Mm.
sometimes just drive.
Yeah.
Or if you're talking to someone, that's what they say, important to listen, and put away the phone, just talk. And that can be something, maybe because of the productivity of capitalism. It's like go go go, I have to do a million things at once. Yeah, and I think that creeps into our a lot of society, and that's why sometimes it's okay to. I would say to people a lot of time that you're doing great. That
Mm.
you're doing great considering everything, because of all the shit's been happening to you. But also, it's hard out there. Life can be tough. It's not that say that it is tough, but it can be at times. And yeah, we live in a society that a lot of time, you could, not that we blame a society on it, but it has a profound impact on
Of
us, and
course.
it would
Yeah.
be silly to naive to deny that, because we just think at the individual level, but we're not even thinking of it. Same as like a child coming to a therapist. Some parents would be like, "You got to fix my child." I know my my mom is a therapist, and works a lot with adolescent psychotherapy, and she'd say that people come in like, "You got to fix my child," but it's like, hang on a minute, did they also? That's not a vacuum. Like
Yeah.
they're coming from a family dynamic and a school that everyone is involved. I can't just flick a switch. So that's the same as us. We are part of the collective as well.
I.
I've
I.
forgotten at all what the question was.
No. No. And I'm gonna just say, because I said to you beforehand, and I was with people will know, listed the podcast regularly, know that Tracy allowed me to do a hypnotherapy session. I would
Yes.
genuinely recommend it for everyone to try once,
Mm.
because it was that what you mentioned about, I just thought of nothing. And she said to me, how long do you think that was? I said 12
Yeah.
minutes, and it was
Yeah.
45 minutes. And
Yeah. I had a client recently. There's a bit of a time distortion. That's always a good sign.
but
It's
it's
really
that
deep.
that's incredible for me, because I wasn't anxious for 45 minutes. Like that's the way, that's what I took away with me. Well, obviously more than that, but that was a massive thing for me. Um, Connor, what do you like to do in your spare time?
Definitely. Sorry, my little
There's a
dog.
dog.
Do you know what? Actually, give me 1 second. I'm going to let him out because he's going somewhere. Can
Yeah,
you
yeah, go on.
pause
I'll
for
fill.
1 second?
I'll fill in. Don't you worry about that. I'm so annoyed by the fact that my thing, it broke the light, the ring light thing. It's very upsetting to me. But yeah, is he out? He's gone, is he?
He's gone, little rascal. I actually knew that at some point he's going to growl or bark. Um, but yeah, my spare time, I always like reading.
Yeah.
Reading's definitely something I like doing. And getting out for walks. A lot of the time, I would be with my son a lot of the time as well,
Hmm.
because I kind of work opposite my partner Colette. Um, so yeah, definitely it's some sort. Definitely getting out is important to me in nature. And definitely I like to now, big importance. It's kind of, it's not something I'm doing now, and but it will be a part like um of shamanism. I don't know if you're kind of
All
aware of
right.
that,
Yeah.
but that's I think a part I would like to work on. But I've kind of only started doing yeah, I've only started on that path. But I have like little practices I like doing with that. So I do like drumming. I do like drumming at home. So like, I've definitely found that the last year I don't meditate as much. I do
Hmm.
meditate, but I might even drum first and then meditate or stuff like that. But offerings. I don't know if you know the idea of offerings, but
Yeah. Well, a little
yeah,
bit, not too much, to
yeah.
be honest.
But again, that would be important to me. Of that, they would say that I've been told that um we've heard of original sin. Everyone's aware of that,
Hmm.
unfortunately. But the idea of maybe not so much original sin, but maybe we have original debt, like
Right.
DEBT. to nature, I suppose, it's to Mother Earth, or not to some,
Yeah.
father or something. But and so the idea of offerings are maybe to give back, those little tokens of yeah, giving thanks. Because I suppose even in life, and we can even compare this, this can go for our parents and our school and our family and uh, everywhere, that we do get a lot. Like, to raise a child, as I say, it takes a village. Like, and I think sometimes we can take that for granted, and it's even for the earth and nature all around us, it is abundant, and we get a lot from it.
Mhm.
So I get a lot. It makes sense. It feels nice. That's a nice ritual I like doing. A little thing for even my mental health, you could argue, is going out and, yeah, maybe giving a few offerings of, that could be money, it could be spirit, alcohol, it could be, I don't know, food, anything. It could
Yeah.
be oats, something natural, but maybe offering it to a tree or something. Which, again, I can get some people is like, what are you doing? But it's, try it. I know it's like
Yeah.
anything else. There is something, and it's something that our ancestors, even as a human race, always have done. So this isn't something, again. This isn't one of those simple things that has been
Mm.
tried and tested for thousands of years. And there's a reason why all indigenous people around the world, native people, still do it. Like, offerings is a part of. So that would be a big thing
Yeah.
that I like to do now, that makes me feel nice inside. And because, again, it's, you're not thinking of yourself again. You're thinking
Of
of,
course. Yeah.
stick it out. And I would say, for what I found really interesting with my son, is that, obviously meditation is quite an alien concept to a child.
Yeah.
Like that video I put up, like, yeah, like
Mm.
that was a once in a blue moon, like, but like it was like 30 seconds of silence, because obviously the children are not meant to be still,
Yeah.
within reason there. So meditation is a hard one to describe and to teach a child. Not that you need to, of course. Obviously, just, it's more like anything else. If you're interested, they'll may mirror you, but you don't have to force them to do it, right?
Mhm.
Like anything in life. But what I found really interesting was that, although meditation is very hard to explain to a child, that he understood the idea of an offering. That there was this film he saw before, Pachamama. Well, it was like a cartoon about I think just before the Aztecs, just before the conquistadors came, and this local town has this big pit, and like every year they have this festival and give offerings into it, to kind of ask for yeah, a good year and good crops. So
Yeah.
they're giving thanks by giving something back. And so he saw that. So when I started kind of started some of my training in shamanism and the idea of offerings, he got it straight away and was like, oh, like Pachamama, like we're giving back. I was like, that's exactly what it's like,
Yeah.
So when I'm talking about Mother Earth, something, he'll say Pachamama, because that's, again, another word for it. But I found it really interesting that it's understandable to a child, because there's a give and take. What we're saying
Yeah.
is, we're giving thanks, and because it's physical. Do you know what I mean? And I think that even that helps for the mind. That I'm, yeah, sometimes meditation can be very metaphysical and yeah, a bit up there in the clouds. That I like the groundedness. Sometimes of going out. Then we might have a little
Mm.
altar at home and give an offering. But then at the end of the week or something, you go out into the forest or into a field or a lake, and you kind of give back. So that's something I definitely like to do.
Pretty beautiful. If you do become a shaman, you'll have to come back on for a chat about that because
Give me, yeah, yeah. Give me a few years. Give me yeah, before I'm a shamanic practitioner. Yeah, I'm only. Later, I did a little intro 9-month course, and then I'm hoping to get on to a. It's actually over in the UK, a 3-year apprenticeship next year. So
oh wow.
I'll give you a call in 3 years' time.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
This is
So that's why I can't speak too much on it, because obviously I'm not
yeah.
doing it now. But that's something that it is becoming a part of it. Other than that, though, yeah, I don't know. Don't know. Yeah, I
Chill out. Like.
definitely. Yeah, chill out. I definitely. I've noticed as well, even a benefit of maybe because of the Irish, of learning songs. I'm starting to
Mm.
do that now. If I'm at home at night and my son's asleep and Clet's not maybe home yet, I like to. If I was doing a bit of meditation or drumming, I'd also sing a few songs. I've kind of
Right.
noticed that. Maybe it's because maybe it's for events, or it could be for a class or a retreat. They're nice to have, but maybe it's that honoring a part of me that like telling stories or something
Yeah.
of old in Ireland that I've learned predominantly a lot of them in Irish, where I kind of learn them, and I just feels nice to sing them. Maybe as an offering or an ode to our ancestors. So yeah.
Yeah, well, if you're Connor, if you're interested in listening to music, like I butcher some songs every now and again on Instagram. It's a lot of fun. But listen, Connor, where can people find you?
Yeah, the best place is probably Instagram.
Yeah,
So the tag on it is, or like my username is Shleen Ruadh, but easier, just look up Conor Ruadh, because I
yeah,
think I'm the only Conor Ruadh. So but that is where you find me. So I'll be doing most of my work is somewhat got to do with the Irish language, but again,
mm,
you don't have to. That's definitely for people. You don't have to have a lick of
yeah,
Irish at all, because I make the point of that, because it so that is accessible to everyone, because I do know, and you could talk forever about the lot of shame and guilt around the Irish language in Ireland. So I try to anyway aim for the accessibility for everyone.
Yeah, and it's a it's an available stepping stone for people if they are interested in that. Conor, you've been an absolute joy to interview. My favorite interviews are always the ones where I don't really have to dig too deep, where the guest is very giving, so I appreciate that an awful lot.
I was going to say, yeah, that's no problem. I can talk for Ireland, as you can see. So,
It's all good.
yeah, you have no problem. I was very aware that actually I was doing a lot of talking there. So,
That's good. No, that's good. Listen, Conor, stick with me for a minute. I'll just close it out, get a photo, and we'll be on our way. All right.
no problem.
Right. I also want to thank John for the tech. I always thank my mum and dad, and my granddad, and Jer and Calvin. I guess that's kind of my offering every week. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you would. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. All the usual podcast places: Spotify, Apple, even Anchor, Google Podcast. And obviously, thanks to everyone for watching or for listening, wherever you find us. And once again, Conor, thanks so much.
Míle buíochas.
Take care, everyone. See you next week. Bye.